So I'd like to now welcome Dr. Michael Weiner. Michael Weiner joined us as an assistant professor of mathematics education in 2017. He holds a PhD from the University of Ohio. He teaches a variety of courses in mathematics education, and he's our lead advisor and sort of contact person for all students who have an interest in majoring in mathematics education. So Dr. Weineck, I was curious about, if students want to major in education, they want to be an elementary teacher. Why math education? Why not just elementary education? After all, aren't they just going to be teaching all different subjects anyway?
Yeah, that's true. And when you're in the state of Washington, you're certified through K-8, all subject areas. Now, what the math, and we have two majors that are kind of elementary for math ed, and why they're maybe so important is in the country right now, our students are getting beaten internationally with the mathematics. The results just came out about 2019 from the PISA, which is an international test that's taken by 64 countries. And we ranked around 30 on the math side. And that's usually it's usually fourth and eighth graders, if I remember correctly. So we're really trying to increase those scores to compete internationally, and we're being beaten. And so what we're trying to do is we want to help pre-service elementary teachers get more prepared to teach math ed, which is incredibly important because that's the foundation of mathematics. That's where we start. So what we want to have is we want to help them get better, because there's also research studies that show that, hey, pre-service teachers or elementary teachers are really unprepared to teach mathematics. And so with these majors, the elementary math major, and we have an elementary math major with a middle level endorsement, and I'll talk about what the difference is in just a second. But what that does is we prepare you to be more attentive to teaching mathematics to students and really hitting the things that maybe some of us, me and you, who went through school, we may not have gotten, because we went through a different style of teaching, and we're really trying to promote this idea of conceptual understanding, what's going on behind the scenes, why does it work the way it does, and really pushing for students to have understanding. And that's one of the big things we're going for. So we have two majors, though, that are in the elementary area. We have elementary math major, and what that is just it's a lot of courses that really prepare you to teach mathematics to elementary K-8. Mostly, and I would say mostly it does get you up to K-8, because we even go up to we kind of hit even middle school / high school geometry, because that kind of it happens in 8th grade. So you're actually certified to teach that in K-8. So what we're doing with that one is it just gets you to be better prepared and more attentive.
So let me make sure I understand it. So it's not really that or that. I mean, students don't have to choose between being good at teaching math and good at teaching English and reading. They still have to take various courses in education, as well as when they are majoring in elementary or even middle level math, right?
Yeah, right, correct. They actually get certified. Still, they're generalists. So they're taking the literacy classes. They're taking all the other methods classes that every elementary ed pre-service teacher takes. So they are getting the same certification, but they're getting additional training in how to teach mathematics. So they're just getting more. They're actually separating themselves from all the other elementary education majors, the straight ones, because they have more additional training on how to teach mathematics than all the regular elementary ed majors have.
Well, it sounds like if I was a school principal, I would want to hire the teachers that are going to help us improve test scores. And it sounds like mathematics is generally a weak point in how we're doing in competing internationally. So it sounds like our elementary math majors have a job lined up when they graduate.
Yeah, many of them do. Many of them, sometimes they teach all kinds of, I mean, they sometimes are teaching, they're still teaching 5th grade, 4th grade, but they're looking on it because it's important to see that mathematics background, because again, districts are trying to increase those scores and also trying to increase achievement, mathematics achievement. And that is an important thing, because a lot of them they're still really struggling. And that's just even recently. So yeah, and so that one is really about developing and creating. So some people just go, I want to help be better at teaching math. Many of the students who come and talk to me in my office when we're talking about the majors, they say, well, I've always had an interest in math. I want to be the teacher that maybe I didn't have or I did have growing up. And sometimes it is that I didn't have. Oh, I want to help kids understand it. Whereas when I was going through it, I just kind of memorized it and went through. They want to deeply understand so they can help their kids deeply understand it because they want to do better. They want to help the next generation out. So yeah, that's a big thing right now.
So as a mathematician, I hear, I'm really more like a statistician, but I hear students talk about math anxiety. Is that a real thing, among our students? Is that something you're concerned about?
Oh yeah, it is actually a thing. Math anxiety is a big deal, and what we actually have traced it in math ed. Where does it come from? It's interesting. It comes from these. A lot of times when we were going through school, at least at least I remember. I can remember my fourth grade teacher giving us these time tests that you did the operations, and it was many times one started with 1 digits and then 2 digits, and you did it. You had to do 50 of them in a minute, right? And we actually have traced it back to that is where probably many of the math anxiety stands because we're going, oh my gosh, I didn't do it. I mean, even me in fourth grade, I can still tell you, I was never that, even though I'm where I am now, right? I never was the elite. Oh my gosh, I can still remember there was this kid over here they were doing division and I was still on subtraction, and they were able to get it done faster. And that created this anxiety, like I'm not good enough and not adequate. And so that creates this anxiety. And so what we're trying to do is we're actually trying to combat that in the math ed program here, is that we're trying to show that, understanding and speed is not as important. So speed is not as important, but understanding is what's important. Getting really going on and really attacking that from that point of view. And so it's not just about rote memorization. Oh, here's what the answer is. It's how did you get there? And so we're really trying to combat that. And some of the things that, we have to think about is, accommodations in some cases. This is just for me personally, and not everybody does this. So some things I do is I do give extra time because I don't really want them, especially elementary ed classes that I teach, that I give a little bit extra time if they need it, and say, hey, you need to keep going because I don't want the anxiety to tell me what you know. I want to know what you want to know, like right now. So there's this kind of thing where we are really attacking this thing, and math anxiety is a real thing. And so we have to try to combat. We also are teaching them methods in our methods classes, how to cope with that and help their students deal with the math anxiety. So we're really trying to approach that from that big point of view, and really getting at that understanding and not worrying about speed, which usually creates the anxiety.
So if I understand it correctly, so in a math education program, which is different than a straight math program, you not only teach them mathematics, so there's just some content classes. There's also classes where you teach the methods, where it's more about the pedagogy and how do you actually get kids to learn mathematics. How do you do this in this virtual environment? I'm sure your classes are normally. I picture you sitting there in a group. We're having lots of group interactions and lots of conversations. How do you deal with that in this virtual world?
I mean, it's difficult. I'll tell you that. It was a learning curve. I had to do it in the spring quarter, and it was a big learning curve. But what I still did is I still had synchronous classes. So like on Zoom, like right here, what I did is I used the breakout rooms in Zoom, and I assigned them tasks, or I assigned them some discussion prompts, and I'd have them go and do the discussion in their groups. And then I would jump in as I could, just like I would do in class. However, the difference is I can't overhear something that someone's standing like over there where I'm in different groups. I have to literally go into the group to hear them. But so you have to adjust for those things. And then a lot of other things I'm doing is I'm showing a lot more virtual manipulatives that are useful in elementary. There are a lot of cool websites that I'll have the kids work with. For example, one of the lessons I had them do in the spring was work with base 10, but virtually. I found a virtual website that allowed them. We talked about how they could do it that way because a lot of them were starting to get tutoring jobs because of the pandemic that was happening, and they were doing things with actual students. And so I wanted to show them different kinds of resources that online that they could use through a virtual situation, that they don't have to necessarily be right next to the students. So that's some things that we're really working on. And I try to run it as interactive as I can when I'm doing methods classes, just like I would do in the class. But I mean, obviously there are constraints, but we are really trying to make sure that students still really see, because I do believe the interaction portion of it is still really important when you're teaching methods.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it sounds like you're handling this situation as good as anybody can. Hey, what advice do you have for students if they're interested in learning more about teaching mathematics? Maybe they don't know if they want to do elementary, middle level, or even high school. Well, what advice do you have for them?
Well, one thing is if they're interested in all this, you contact me, and we can put my email address on this, and so you can see it. That contact me because we have different options. As I said, we have an elementary math option. We also have an elementary middle level, which is a little bit different. It's that you still get the elementary, but we add 3 more classes, and you take a middle level endorsement test, and that leads to an endorsement. So you get the middle level mathematics 4 through 9, which means you can take ninth grade. You can actually teach high school, usually algebra 1 and geometry, and you can do all that stuff. And you still, or you can choose to still do. Oh, I'm going to do 5th grade. You still can do that. It gives you a lot of options. So it leads to an additional endorsement, which sometimes people are like, well, I'm on the fence. I kind of want to teach middle school. I'm kind of sure I'm not. Then they kind of fit that realm. Then they get 2 worlds, and it makes the marketing for getting a job much more easier for them to go. I can apply for middle school jobs. I can apply for elementary jobs, and they hit both worlds. We also have a straight middle level major, which is only 4 through 9 mathematics. When I say 4, sometimes this gets confusing. 4 and 5th is if it's a specific math class that you're going to do it. Because sometimes some districts, they rotate kids around in 5th grade, and you'd have to be the math teacher at that point. But then we also have, of course, the secondary, which I will let Dr. Carlos talk about that one because that's more his thing. But it is something that if you have questions about it, come see me. We can talk about it. I usually we talk to the whole program, both us and the education program that students go through, and like how many hours of you're going to be in the classroom, even those things. We talk about the whole thing, and it gives you full information. Sometimes it's overwhelming, but usually it gives them a contact point. They can talk to me about what questions they have.
That's excellent. It sounds like we've got lots of options for students. And thank you so much for joining us. I hope you stay safe and enjoy maybe a few more days of rest before things go really crazy here. Fall quarter starting. So thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
All right, you're welcome.